I really hope there'll be a change. I think people have been talking about a change, but there is a human tendency once things regularize for everything to swing right back to the way it was.
2020 was a tough one, and we look forward to enjoy and explore new boundaries and new possibilities for fashion and for our brand. And I also think that all the brands will focus on their strengths, which is what we're doing at Coperni.
The change that is needed is pretty much about genuinity and going back to the question, why do I work in this business and what do I bring to the table?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be for brands and consumers and all of us to kind of stick to, the beliefs we've espoused and the learnings that theoretically we've had over the last 9 months during the pandemic, to really seize the opportunity to change things and to rethink what we do and to not have this be a kind of blip in history, but actually a kind of turning point, where we go in a different direction, both in terms of consumption and sustainability and manufacturing and messaging. But I think the jury is still out, really, on whether that will happen.
On a mass scale, I don't think it will. My heart says it will. My brain says it won't.
I think the fashion industry will change as long as we stay very aware of what is needed and as long as we keeping up the conversation together.
I just think we've got to get with the times and make sure that we are forward thinking. We've got to make sure that we're thinking creatively, commercially, and really importantly, ethically. I think the consumer wants to see that all companies are being ethical these days, like whether that's with your packaging, with the brands that you support. So it needs to be like a 360 thing, really. I think that people that are not doing that now are not going to survive. And I do think that businesses that do change or do get with the times, if they can survive the pandemic, they will then thrive afterwards.
So I think 2021 is going to be a really big year. We've seen massive systemic shifts in the system already because of the Black Lives Matter movements and this exhausting pivot to digital, which has been on steroids because of the COVID pandemic. So 2021, I think in 2020, we saw lots of people really jump quickly into digital and to new strategies of thinking. But I don't think there was the long considered thought as to what it means, what's the ROI, etc. It was a quick jump.
I think that sort of been the main thing that I've found personally affected by is how fashion media had to shift and adapt. And I think that what we've learned from 2020 is that the dreaded word content has now become a firm fan favourite, not only for classical media who've been obviously much more presenting, snackable online content, but also for brands, it's starting to appear that kind of creating personal content is very important.
I think they'll need to simplify the process first and foremost. 1 to 2 collections a season, develop a core line. I think you're golden there. A lot of big brands have tried and tested this over the years and have developed a very strong business as a result.
Well, I think in general, the system, especially after a pandemic, requires that we work from our core values so that the business is not driven by numbers, by only marketing for the sake of marketing. But I think for every company within the business, even big or small, it requires that companies need to reinvent themselves in a way that they are acting and operating more genuine in every aspect in the business.
That's a good thing about COVID, unfortunately, is that we are all caring more and helping each other.
There's no quick pandemic fix. As I said, it needs long thought over strategy. And also we need to think about some of the fundamentals of what fashion means. And I think that's a really interesting point as well. Like sustainability is a big plus point of digital. And I think that 2021 accountability and transparency are going to be 2 big key words that have been looming in the fashion industry for a long while.
I personally felt that Digital Fashion Week really showed great potential, and it showed that the fashion system doesn't need to rely on the old scheme of editors flying across the world to see shows, and that it's easy and enjoyable to kind of have more of a sustainable way of doing things.
From my point of view, I would like to see a reduction in the collections and the amount of fashion weeks around the world. I personally think that we should show men's and women's during February and also during June, and then present pre-collections just with lookbooks. I don't think we should be showing men's January, women's February, men's June, women's September. I just don't feel like there is place for a fashion week that's separated by gender anymore.
On our side, I guess that the physical part is very important. These physical moments are even more precious now, I guess. And then between the fashion weeks, obviously the digital is the most important. We have to play, we have to enjoy, we have to show all our collections through digital.
In terms of consumer habits, it's hard to predict, really. I guess it depends on the economy and if we see a boom after the pandemic or if we see like a huge recession. I believe that like in luxury, it will be less affected anyway. But I do think that, again, consumers will be looking towards brands and businesses that are more ethical, homegrown talent, young designers, all this kind of thing. I think it's really important. I think the consumer will want to see where the product has come from. They don't want to see the products in every single store. They want like more exclusive, special products.
I don't think it's going to change an awful lot. Yes, the consumer is spending their money slightly differently in terms of what they're wearing, maybe more obviously loungewear, homeware, active and wellness. Those numbers have gone through the roof for, I think, most people. The demand has definitely outweighed the supply. But in terms of within the luxury market, it hasn't changed at all. People are still buying the same chunky sneakers. The brands that have been at the top of the ladder for so long are still at the top, and it's just the product hasn't changed.
As 2021 will go on, I think that the way that people are going to want to buy stuff is going to be quite different. I think that we're going to want to keep the economy going as much as possible. I think people are going to more and more buy into the idea of luxury, but with a kind of a perennial turn towards comfort. Whatever the medium may be that people are trying to express in fashion, people are going to start being more selective than the start of 2020 let us be. But I think that there's always going to be a shift towards comfort that inevitably being a bit safer and being more indoors is going to endure.
I do think the one thing that probably won't change is that consumers really do want brands to stand for something stand for something beyond beauty and heritage and materiality. They want brands to take political positions. They want brands to be authentically committed to a bigger kind of social course of action. And I think that will stay the course. I think that has been a sort of sea change in how people want to spend their money, and that they want sort of real value systems to be embedded, into the seams of what they buy.